You are listening to the Flat Squirrel Podcast Network, which also includes Digging for Kryptonite and My Comic Shop Book Club, available on all major podcast platforms and in video form at the Anthony Desiato YouTube channel. To support the Flat Squirrel Podcast Network and get a bunch of extra exclusive episodes, sign up at patreon.com/Anthony Desiato. Thank you. Alternate Realities has been gone for over 5 years, but our community lasts forever. And now, in these dark times, the AR signal lights up the night sky, and the old gang is ready to answer the call as we celebrate a year's worth of holidays together. This is the LongAR Halloween. My Comic Shop History is brought to you by The Hive Comics and Games is an oasis of nerd fun and events in the heart of Odessa, Texas. Whether it's comic book superhero stories or role-playing in a dungeon, The Hive is where to be. Come tap your mana and face off against the top Magic the Gathering players in West Texas. Hive carries a majority of new comic titles each Wednesday and has all of your favorite titles in their back issue section. Follow them on Facebook at The Hive Comics and on Instagram at The Hive Comic Shop. Movie lovers should check out this family of film festivals: the Brightside Tavern Film Festival in Jersey City, the Hang On to Your Shorts Film Festival in Asbury Park, and the Point Lookout Film Festival on Long Island. Submission information for filmmakers, as well as details about the festivals generally, can be found at filmfreeway.com. Also, be sure to listen to the podcasts hosted by the festival's organizer, CJ Cullen. You can find the official Hang On to Your Shorts podcast, as well as the Cullen on Film podcast, via a shared universe network. Welcome to the LongAR Halloween, a My Comic Shop history tale. I'm your host, Anthony Desiato. This is part 6, St. Patrick's Day. And for this installment, I am joined by former Alternate Realities crew member, Brian O'Day. Brian O'Day, welcome.
We are back.
Yes, unbeknownst to our audience, we had some Wi-Fi issues. We were trying to video chat, and that wasn't working. So we've switched to an audio-only call. So this is now, I think, our third attempt at getting this started, but third time's the charm.
This is our third take. It was nice to see your face for the 2 minutes, though.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, it's been a while, and like I said in the version that people will never hear, like I said, that's one of the main reasons I wanted to do this. I wanted to catch up with the AR gang, check in on everyone, get a chance to see everyone, albeit virtually. So it was nice to see you briefly, and I'm happy to talk to you. I mean, it's been a while, and I think we have a few things to catch up on.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. I did try to throw a shout out to Lord Retail and to Sean Hendricks. So, just after watching the documentary and, hearing the many podcasts that you guys have done with them, especially Sean, man, is he the number one star? Is he on the most? Has he the most appearances?
We don't want this to go to his head. I feel like we're running that risk right now. Yeah, Sean has been a very frequent guest.
Man.
And I do the Patreons. I did a 4-part Patreon miniseries with him too. So especially if you factor that in, he's definitely, in terms of the most frequent guests, he's up there for sure.
Oh man. That's awesome for him, but I'm pretty sure that's already gone to his head.
He's gone so far above and beyond in the promotion of the documentary. It's awesome.
Oh my God.
Nice to see.
It's great, man. I love every second of it. I'm happy for you guys, and I'm happy for it. It was nice to have it on, on Apple TV, and just I could watch it on a big screen TV. It's great.
Yeah, and actually, this is the first episode of My Comic Shop History that I'll be putting out since this occurred. The documentary is now available on CuriosityStream, which is the streaming platform. It's like Netflix for documentaries. So excited for this to happen.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's out there on CuriosityStream. So it's another way to watch in addition to, to Apple and iTunes. Although I know all of my listeners, all of them have already watched it. But in case there's anyone who hasn't, now there's another way to watch it.
Well, that's great, man. That's really cool. I mean, I'm very happy for you. I'm delighted for you and all the hard work that you put into it. I know. And it's been a long road, but, you've been persistent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you gotta stay at it. No, I appreciate all of your support. I appreciate your participation. And actually, I was going to save this for later, but it's appropriate to mention now because there's a question I've been meaning to ask you on the podcast. It's kind of spinning out of one of your comments in the documentary. And I feel like, again, we have other things that I want to cover, but I want to make sure I ask you this. I don't want to forget. So Just as a refresher for our listeners, you are one of the what I call the AR legacy interviews in my comic shop country, right? You and a handful of the other guys from Alternate Realities, I have you on screen talking about the closing of the store and the legacy of the store, what it means to you. And you have a soundbite where you say that, and I think this is the exact quote. I think this is the exact quote. I don't know when we all get together at all anymore. And, you know, referring to, you know, and this was pre-COVID, right? The fact that those large AR dinners, those gatherings, they happen so infrequently now. And it seemed like, you know, you weren't celebrating that, right? There seemed to be some sadness in that. Was my takeaway. So then my question is, and this, I don't say this with any antagonism, like I'm genuinely curious, because to the best of my knowledge, like you've not sent out a mass email or a group text or something like that and tried to like take the reins and organize one of these dinners. So I guess I'm curious, like if you would want those gatherings to happen, like why not try to make one happen?
I mean, I figured this was coming along sometime because you had mentioned this to me before, but you know, I was never the one to grab the bull by the horns for like the gatherings. You know, Bill was in town. It kind of just formed naturally. You know what I mean? Everybody came in. Rich Roney's in town. Okay, you know, you had 20 people at those dinners, and so I think the most we ever had at one of those dinners, not including the AR goodbye at Venetian Delight, might have been like 23 or 24 people. And I knew when the store shut down, I was like, that's probably never going to happen again. Now, it's nice that you get the 8 to 10 guys that come out, you know, every once in a while, but that rarely happens. Well, that rarely happened anymore before COVID. I mean, I know Rich would come down every once in a while, and he would get dinner with Drew and Tom and Steve, and you know, he might go over to Spider's Web or to Oh Yeah, but I don't know. I was really sad because I always loved that things, and you just got to see everybody, you know, even if it's just say hello for 5-10 minutes. That's something that I really missed, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was sad. I absolutely was sad. The right term was sad. Yeah. I try not to show it, but, you know, I absolutely was sad.
Yeah. No, I get it. No, yeah, I was just curious. I mean, this has come up with Odo, too, where, you know, he'll lament the lack of the gatherings. And, you know, I mean, I've said to him, it's like, well, why not, you know, like, why not try to organize? And the thing is, it's like, believe me, I know from firsthand experience, I know it's not easy wrangling everyone. I get it.
Well, I think if Steve actually asked people to come, we would all go. I mean, especially coming from Steve. But... yeah. You know, because he was such a figurehead, obviously, because it was the store. It was his store. You know, for me to do it, I think it more so comes from the guys that were there all the time, you know, you or Sean or even Tom or, you know, even not that Rich would use any technology and send out mass emails for everybody, although he does email to, you know, Mike San Gregorio, you know, he would take the reins and organize these big, you know, dinners and stuff like that. And fair play to him, he did. I'm more was like, okay, great. You know, tell me when and where. That's the time, and I'll show up. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I do think you're selling yourself a little short, a lot short, actually. I mean, if you were, you know, if you were if you were to take the reins, I'm sure everyone would love to hear from you. Would be happy. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you certainly have, you know, just as much right as anyone else, you know, to do it.
Well, it's not that I see it as a right or privilege. Definitely not. You know, it was more of it was more. I don't know how to explain this. It was more something of, you know, it was everybody's generosity, everybody's, you know, graciousness, just to be around with all those good people. You know, that's what it was. That's something that you miss. But, you know, look, almost actually all of you are married except for like me and Tom. You know, so. For you guys have lives of your own with your wives, you know, and I know the wives come out sometimes they don't. You know, I'm not trying to intrude in any of that either. Oh, sorry, Rich Roney, Bachelor. Sorry, Rich. I apologize. I apologize, Rich. But though that's the type of thing that I really do miss. I do miss all the camaraderie. But especially with COVID, like I miss going to Comic Cons. I miss seeing friends at Comic Cons. That was always fun, even though they were all chaos. And that also, I know it's hurt a lot of people, especially small businesses that would get to these cons and they would, they can get, maybe $50,000 or $60,000 in sales for a weekend, like a New York Comic Con, and they do great, and that makes up half the year for them or something like that,
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, this has been, and I know you've been very involved with Chris Wilcock at Undiscovered Realm and helping out at his own convention and conventions that he goes to as a vendor. So no, I mean, so we know, firsthand people who have been affected by all of this. Now, well, so speaking of COVID and its impact on everything, am I correct? Have you made a career change in the midst of all of this?
Not by choice.
What's going on?
So, I guess this would be about the time. I guess we're almost about a month away from almost 1 year. Then the lockdown happened, right? So, this will be a 1 year anniversary of COVID, basically starting, right?
Yeah, this episode drops on March 3rd, and yeah, the lockdown and everything was just very
March 11th.
Shortly after that. Yeah,
March 11th. So I was furloughed from my previous job. So for those who don't know what furlough means, it means that I was asked to step away from your job, and they have the right to take you back within a given period. But I declined to go back. And, after looking for a few things, I had a friend who worked for ShopRite, or he works for the parent company of ShopRite. Said, they're looking for people. I think you'd be a good fit. And I'm in my 5th month of training. And it's been working out so far, so good. I'm enjoying it. My stress level is a lot less. The job is pretty good. The people are really good. Not the people in my old job were bad. They were all pretty good. It's just something new in life. You don't take anything for granted. Companies don't owe you anything. They pay you for your time, basically. But yes, I'm embracing the new job, and just some livelihood. I'm trying to enjoy things and just keeping an open mind for most things these days, to be honest with you.
No, I get it. And I mean, you have always struck me as someone who, does what he has to do. Right. And so I admire, what you've done and the fact that you've landed on your feet. And I think that's awesome. And, I'm sorry that you were in that position to begin with. I mean, you were at your old job for like how long?
15 years.
Jeez.
Yeah. Like I said, they don't owe you anything. And that's okay. And it was a lesson learned, to be honest with you. It was a good lesson to be learned. But, at the end of the day, I got to say, they did ask me to go back, and I got to say whether or not I wanted to. So, I can't fault anybody, So you've got to take responsibility yourself. So, and yeah, I'm not the type of person to try to sit around and do nothing. I'm not like that. I wasn't built that way. I will go out and get something done. It doesn't matter what it is, at the end of the day. But plenty of people like that as well. I'm not the only one like that.
Not the only one, but not everyone is like that. So, I mean, kudos to you for that. Now, we have, of course, a mutual friend, Tom Darby, who's going to be on the next episode of the LongAR Halloween, who has years and years of supermarket experience. He's an educator, but he's also worked at a supermarket as well. And I'm just curious if you asked him for any advice and if he shared any with you that you were able to use.
I have not, but things that he has mentioned are things that I've sort of seen. His role is a little bit different than what my role is. So I'm in like store management role, and where he's more on the floor. So I have a pretty much different role, and he's also working for a different supermarket than I am. So I'm not too familiar with their ins and outs as I am with my own supermarket. I don't know if we'd have to pay for to say who I work for. So I'm trying to be careful.
No, I think you already said, but that's okay.
Fair enough. Sorry.
No, I was just curious. And, again, Tom will be on the next episode, the April Fool's episode, because he and I are both April birthdays. So
That's
he'll be
correct.
he'll be on there. And so maybe maybe I'll ask him about any supermarket advice that he might give to you or to someone. But again,
I already know the answer to that question, and I'm sure you did too already. I'm sure you do already as well.
I might. So who have you been keeping in touch with from the AR gang during this COVID era?
I hear from Rich. Maybe every other month. I saw Drew one evening having for Chinese food. There's a new Chinese restaurant over by where we live. Who else? I saw Doug one day in a 7-Eleven, but he's keeping away from everybody because of COVID. And the most regular person that I have seen is Tom Darby because we watch UFC fights. So that's really what it is. But also, I will say, and Bill Mayo, I hope you're listening to this, there has been a Jeff Wong sighting.
What?
Yes. A Jeff Wong sighting, and he actually works in the Chinese restaurant right next to my apartment. So that is a fact of life. Okay.
So, longtime listeners, and if you watched my comic shop documentary, the original movie about AR, Jeff Wong. If you watch the movie, you've seen him in action. If you've listened to the podcast, you've heard us tell stories about him. Hands down, the most legendary customer in alternate realities history.
Absolutely.
And his whereabouts have been unknown for some time, and that's been one of my regrets, maybe my only regret. I love this podcast. And I'm so proud of this podcast and everything that I've been able to do with it. But one regret is not being able to get Jeff Wong on. And, we have our 100th episode coming up in a few months.
Oh, my God, that would be epic.
So did you talk to him?
I did not talk to him. Funny enough, the only reason I knew it was him, because he was wearing his glasses. Still those thick glasses. He would, I'm not trying to be mean, but Jeff was a little overweight. And he's still overweight, and he went right outside and was just puffed down that cigarette like it was the last thing on earth that he was going to enjoy, and went right back into the restaurant. I was like, oh, my God. And I mentioned this to Drew, and he's like, there's no way. And he's like, I have yet to see Jeff there. I was like, he went all the way into the back, and, like, if you look into the restaurant, you can barely see, like, the workers in the back, but I've seen him there 3 other times as I walk by the restaurant, and I'm like, that is hilarious. I was like, there's no way. I would love, because it's only a countertop when you walk into the restaurant, so like the kitchen's all the way in the back. So you're looking into the back of the kitchen so you can see all the workers. But I've only seen him there a handful of times, and, obviously I haven't really talked to him. So that's really what it comes down to.
Oh,
but
man.
It'd be great if I'm still convinced the only person that can ever get him onto the podcast is Bill Mayo. I really am. So maybe Steve. Maybe Steve could do it, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. This is great intel, though. Thank you. This is big.
No problem.
Just to know where he is generally. What's
big news.
Yeah, it's it's amazing though, because I have him on camera in the original movie talking about and I filmed that in 2010, and I think at
11 years ago.
Yeah, and at that point he was going to celebrate he was going to be 35. I remember I have him on camera saying I'll be 34 or 35. So, it's amazing to think like he's in his mid 40s now.
Yeah, that is crazy. Well, I just turned 40.
You did.
So, I mean, it's not that unbelievable anymore. I remember when 40 was so old. Steve Odo, that one's for you. All right. We're all so old.
Well, no, that's the thing. I think it was in the Halloween, the LongAR Halloween premiere episode. I think it was in that episode. Bill and I were talking about how it's crazy to us to think that, like, now we're in the same general age that Steve was when he opened alternate realities.
Yes.
It's so weird, because it's like we always looked at him, we met him as kids, and he was this fully formed adult, and it's like, wow, he has a comic shop, blah blah. And it's like now it's like, oh, like we're that age that he was then. Like it's kind of crazy.
Well, I found a photo. I don't know if Steve gave me the photo, but I found an old photo of this, of Steve and I. I think somebody gave me the photo of Steve and I playing cribbage in the store. And this is when the register was on the left-hand side when you had walked in the store. So that you're talking years and years, and I mean I had to been 18 or 19 at the time. I had to been. So crazy how long ago that photo was taken, and just crazy how long to think that you've known Steve. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
you're talking. I've known Steve over 20 years.
I know.
It's just crazy to think.
I was thinking about you, obviously, in advance of this episode, and thought of you recently when I wished you a happy birthday, and a couple of thoughts.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course. And, well, in thinking about your 40th birthday, it seems like just yesterday that we had that big dinner at Mickey Spillane's for your 30th, right? And I remember your dad was there, and he treated everyone, and, I think that was the only time I had a chance to meet him, but it was such a great time, and it's amazing to think that it's 10 years ago.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It was a blink in the eye, to be honest with you. It's like, where did that time go? That's my thoughts now. Is it's like we all sound the same at a certain age, right? Where did the time go? Where did the time? I was like, I'm gonna be looking, and it's like, oh, I had that. I have that. I'm gonna be saying that. Oh, I have that. I'm gonna sound like Steve. Oh, I have that. And I'm looking at, Bill Mayo, again, to reference Bill, because we, even Chris Wilcock, just Magic the Gathering, those cards in general, the cards that I had when I was younger, it's just like, why didn't I keep them all? Because they're worth so much money now,
Yeah.
Crazy to think, crazy.
I know.
But I've kept those comic books. I've kept a lot of comic books, so I'm kind of holding on to those. It's like I'll hold on to for hope. Maybe they'll go up more,
Yeah.
But yes.
Well, I'll jump back to comics in a second, because I actually have a patron question for you specifically. So we'll get to that in a second.
Oh, wow.
But
great. That's awesome.
Yeah, very cool. But as far as just aging, right, and celebrating your 40th birthday, the thing that I love seeing this, and it's encouraging to me. I mean, would you say like you're in the best shape of your life now at 40?
Yeah, I'm close to it. I mean, probably the best was, I'd say peak was about 35. That's probably my best. 36. And the only reason I say that is because I was super consistent. It was every other day, 4 to 5 times a week. Quit smoking. Actually, hold on a second. So I quit smoking. It'll be 9 years. No, 10 years. It'll be 10 years. It'll be 10 years. Wow. Next month that I've quit smoking. So that's probably when I was in the best shape, because you started to get your lungs back. But yeah, I'm not in terrible shape now. I'm in pretty decent shape, but I stay active. And I think that's part of the key, is to stay active, and it should be encouraging. But you worked out, you lift weights, and, you do exercise. I mean, I'm not a weights guy. I'm more of a martial arts guy. And I think that helps, but yeah, it should be encouraging, because, I do feel good, but I start to hurt in the morning too. And I get my aches and pains like everybody else.
Yeah, no, I understand. No, I get it.
It is what it is. You learn as you get older, you can't really handle your alcohol anymore. It's like, I had, you had 2 beers and then I have a hangover for 2 days. It's like, what happened? But that's okay. I don't mind. I mean, I don't really drink as much as I used to. I mean, and we all know I was a big booze hound, but I really don't do any of that anymore. I'm more just trying to eat pretty clean and healthy and enjoy my vices every once in a while. And that's it,
Yeah.
There's no secret formula to it. You know what I mean? Try to do the right thing. You know, I wish there was some secret to say, hey, the secret's out and everybody can share it, you know? But there is no secret. It's, you know, but at the end of the day, it's all hard work as well. You know, you got to be consistent. That's the hardest thing to do. Be consistent.
That's the thing. And, you know, both my grandfather and my mother, lifelong, commitment to exercise. And I saw that, you know, in both of them growing up. And, you know, it took me a while before I came around to that myself. But, you know, the thing that, you know, I saw from them and that now I've learned, what are you doing over there?
What?
Oh, no. All this rustling.
Oh, sorry. No, it's just taking off my sweatshirt because it's hot. Sorry.
It's okay.
Good thing we're not on video here.
Yeah, Brian's naked at this point.
Now I'm naked. Now the pants are off.
Well, are you an Office fan or no?
I love The Office.
Well, the episode in the final season, the prank that they pull on Dwight when they make him think he's on the radio, and they're like, "Oh, we're getting some rustling," and so like he's down to his underwear in the break room. It's amazing.
Yeah,
that's what Brian is like right now. We can't see him.
Yeah, pretty much. That's funny.
But no, what I was saying.
Jim is still my favorite character in that show.
Oh, of course, he's the heart of the show.
Oh, he's so funny.
But yeah, no, with the exercise, it is a lifelong commitment. It's a lifelong commitment for sure. And I think, like you said, right, there's no quick fixes. There's no easy answers. It's like, it's the work and it's the consistency, and it's not, you know, because I've really, this past year, between losing the gym in my building that I was using and then moving and setting up my home gym and dealing with a wrist injury, like I had a lot of starts and stops over this past year. And I'm happy to say, like, I'm in a point now where like I'm in a good groove, and it's like I'm having fun banging those weights around.
Great.
You know, and it's great. And I'm happy to be at that point. But it's like, I put this in one of my Facebook posts, but like I knew, like, one of those first workouts back, it's like, I'm going to take a beating in there tonight. Like, you know, this is not going to be easy. I'm going to feel this tomorrow, but it's like, you got to do it.
Well, it's hard to keep those robust biceps going, isn't it?
You know, in some ways, the New York Times writing that in that story about me was one of the best things, because like I can never let myself slack off too much, because it's like, it's on record, so I got to live up to that.
You know, 10 years later, right? We still joke about it.
Yes,
you know?
I know. And you know what's funny? In that moment, I still remember reading that article on my phone in the hotel room at San Diego Comic-Con. And it was very exciting for all the reasons you would think. But I still remember when I got to that line, and the thought that raced through my head was, I'm never going to hear the end of this.
Nope. 10 years later, it's like, oh, hey, there you go.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished. You know, in another 10 years, when you do the reunion, I don't know how you're going to do it, but you'll figure out an AR term to it. You'll figure it out. I'm sure in another 10 years, the 20-year reunion. Those robust biceps, how they doing?
Yeah, they still gotta keep at it. But no, I mean, so like for me, like I do enjoy weights. I mean, it can be tough, you know, to not get bored, for sure. That can be, but I like it, and it's a great way to just relieve stress. It's like, I noticed that, like, in terms of mental health, like I noticed that I felt more peaceful and less stressed, like, once I got back into a better routine, because it's just like, you just leave it all in there, and it's like you're tired, but in a good way, and it's just, I love it. And I'm assuming it's something similar for you with the mixed martial arts.
100%. It's more Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at this point.
Oh, gotcha.
And yeah, and you know, the guys that we train with, well, my professor or my teacher, JT Torres, shout out. He is one of the hardest working guys I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't know anybody who works harder at what he does than that guy. Really, and it's a true testament to him. He's one of the hardest working guys ever. And you know, the other coaches, they're those guys are all beasts. They are all in their own way the best at what they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They all work very, very hard. You know, there's a bit of grit to them. You know, they're in the trenches, and they're getting it done. And you know, that's his livelihood. You know, it's different. I'm doing it as a pastime, as a sport, and you know, do some competitions here and there. try to get better, try to get my black belt, you know? I mean, the ultimate goal is to get a black belt and maybe hopefully one day open up my own school. But that, you know, that's a long-term goal. But it's a realistic goal, and hopefully one that he helps me further along. And, you know, he has I would love you to interview him to be way, way off the cuff for you, I guess, you know? And I bet you have a lot different questions than he would ever expect because, you know, I listen to a lot of his interviews and podcasts, and, you know, they're all jiu-jitsu guys, and they generally ask all the same questions. It's similar to, because it's the niche, right?
Right.
So so it's similar to what we do and what you do here. But I mean, some of the questions that you've been coming up with in your podcasts or discussions and stuff like that, especially like how the COVID ordering was going, you know, the whole thing with DC going direct, and, you know, how that affected, and, you know, again, shout out to Sean, shout out to Lord Retail, because those are the two guys that, you know, we're basing information off of. You know, and I saw Paul Barrero over at Spider's Web a couple of times. He ordered some books for me. So, you know, the Three Jokers and all that.
Yeah. Well, well, first of all, as far as you opening a school, I mean, I did not know that was a long-term goal. And I think that's awesome. And I would love to see you do that. And, you know, I think we know where there's some open real estate on Central Avenue, you know, if in case you're looking for a spot.
That'd be too close, but yeah, I got you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that place, because there was we talked about this on the podcast, an after school learning center that took over AR's spot, but I think because of COVID, I think they're, yeah.
I think it's gone too.
But anyway, I hope, man, I would love to see you do that. I think that's awesome. And I love that you've gotten into this and that it's been a healthy, positive thing, you know, in your life.
Oh yeah.
But speaking of, well, actually, because you mentioned Hendrix a couple of times, and I just want to say, like with Fat Moose, because I was thinking about this, you know, I've gotten friendly, obviously, with a lot of these retailers over the course of the past few years, and it's awesome. And in some cases, like Sean and Lord Retail, like they're genuinely friends. Like it's gone beyond, you know, their subjects in a documentary. But with Fat Moose in particular, it's like I've gotten to know, either in person and or through Facebook, like the customers there. You know, like there are a number of, and they listen to the podcast and all that stuff. So it's like I think out of all the stores, not only do I know him, but it's like I know their group, and it's not. Again, and we've talked about this, like the vibe is very close to the AR group. So like, it's very, very cool.
I've been meaning to go there for ages. So I mean, I've never actually met Sean, but I've been meaning just to go into that store for ages. My godmother, I'll use it as an excuse to go see my godmother just so I can go to the shop, because I've been meaning just to see the shop in general. And, you know, just because maybe I'll get some of that old AR nostalgia, you know? Or maybe I can rub off some of the old nostalgia into that store or something like that, you know?
Yeah, well, I'm sure Sean would be happy to have you. He'll pour you a glass of whiskey, and you'll have a fun time.
Oh, Sean, Redbreast 21. All right, we're good. Good.
you know, it's so funny, man, because like I saw all of his customers who brought him whiskey for the holidays, and it's like I think he's well stocked for quite some time, and.
Oh man, that's great. Yeah. I'm sure he would have wanted the cash instead.
You know what? Knowing Sean, and he'll respond to this when he listens to this, but I feel confident in saying he was happy with the whiskey.
Good. I bet he was.
But so the listener question that I had for you, one of my patrons, the patrons have the opportunity to ask a question that I read on air. And so Eric, one of our all-star patrons and longtime listeners, was curious. He was curious if you've continued to read comics, and if so, what your comic shop experience has been like since AR closed.
So the answer to this is, sorry, it's a little bit of a long answer, but the answer to the question is, once AR closed, I really stopped reading comics. I kind of stopped reading comics before AR closed. I wasn't really getting anything anymore. I would pick up a trade here and there just because I didn't read the stories or anything like that. But over the last few months, probably the last few months, I've really gone on a binge of buying comics again. And I think it's more so it's just like, you know what, I miss it. And it's just bringing back, you know, the old, having the book in my hand, reading it, especially, you know, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they came out with this Ronin, and that kind of, that was a straw that broke the camel's back after seeing Three Jokers, right? I was like, I'm getting Three Jokers no matter what. Okay, cool. Then they solicited Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Ronin, and I'm like, I have to read this. It looks phenomenal, and I was always a big Ninja Turtles fan, and Chris Wilcock and I, we would have discussions of, he's far bigger fan than I am, but I loved it as much as it, and being friends with Ken Scott, who played Raphael in the original Turtle movies, he, it helps, you know what I mean? So I was like, okay, let me get this story. And then I would, I've always been on a big samurai kick, and I was like, there was a new Usagi Yojimbo series, and that's also going to be on Netflix soon. I was like, you know what? Let me start buying these up and reading them, and I've been enjoying them, to be honest with you. Now, I don't go to the comic shop too often. I do shop at Spider's Web, so to get my books, because Paul's been a long time, friend, at least friend to the store, friend to me, and he takes care of me when I go to the store anyway. So so the answer is I didn't for a long time, and up until about the beginning of COVID, I started back again, and I picked up. I think it was you who recommended that I needed to read Batman White Knight, and I picked that up in a hardcover, and it's been good so far. I'm only halfway through it, but it's been good so far.
Oh, good. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, I haven't read the follow-up yet, or I think there might be multiple follow-ups at this point, but I like the original miniseries. And yeah, as a Joker fan, I figured you would get a kick out of it.
I think it's great.
So, all right, so you were out of it for a while, but you've been dabbling, back in, and you've been doing it through Spider's Web. So that's cool. I mean, and we've talked about this before, like, when AR was closing, that's where Steve was directing everyone when they were asking, well, where should I get my comics? Because wasn't open yet, and Paul was the other, like, big game in town, and he was a former AR customer, so it was a natural segue. And he and Steve have remained, on good terms and everything, so, it made sense. Do you feel, does it have... Because I shopped there for a period of time, but I haven't in a while. I mean, does it have any kind of like AR-esque feel for it? Or, I mean, maybe that's hard to answer because we're dealing with COVID anyway.
I mean, I would tell you not at the present time.
Yeah.
And just don't get me wrong. Paul and the employees are very welcoming when I walk into the store. They all know who I am. So, and I'm surprised, our comic circles are not that large, but I'm surprised that they know who I am and stuff like that. Paul obviously, because I would have conversations with Paul for hours in AR,
Yeah.
But he would have also a mountain of books to go through. So he would, maybe he had 2 copies of everything that came out on that week or something like that. But no, I must say, last year I was in Portugal. Maybe this is what really triggered it because I was in Portugal last year, and I said, you know what? Let me see what comic shops are around where I'm staying. And I found 2 comic shops, and they were relatively close to each other. But Portugal is like Lisbon wasn't that big, and I walked into them, and they were very, welcoming. They're like, I'm from New York. I'm over here for a jiu-jitsu tournament, and they're like, oh, very nice. And I said, it's like, you like comics? I'm like, yeah. And it was just, at the time there really wasn't anything in the store that I hadn't seen before. And I was like, okay, comics are pretty much the same. That they were pushed, they didn't really have too many new books per se, but they were pushing their trades big time. And so, but they had like a lot of old vintage toys hanging around. And that's something I liked about our comic shops, or even AR, that we had some vintage toys lying around. It was always cool to see those. I remember we had those telescoping Lukes and old Star Wars toys. I think Bill went through all those, and the G.I. Joe and stuff like that. I like that stuff as well, and through Chris Wilcock and him having his own Comic-Con, I got some old vintage pieces that I've been meaning to always pick up again, so it's worked out in a sense,
Yeah, no, that's cool. And you've got one up on me because like I've never been to a comic shop in another country. Do you go when you're in Ireland as well? Because I know you go there a lot. Do you go to comic shops there?
So I did when I was younger. I would always look for them and just to see what they were like. But as I've gotten older, just timing, I haven't had enough time to go even look around. I've been to a comic shop in Scotland when I was in Scotland. That was cool. The guy had a lot, and now you see, here's hindsight for you. He had so many Silver Age books, and they weren't expensive at all at the time. And I could have just feathered through a bunch of them, taken out some key books, and said thank you very much, and rode the wave, But now I see everybody does these buy-ins. They're buying, 20, 30, 40 copies of one issue, and I'm not into that. I like having my one copy, maybe a second copy just in case, but that's that's all I really want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One copy for myself. If I have to, if I never get married or have, kids or anything like that, I'll probably leave all my comics and, magic cards to my godchildren, and they can do whatever they want with it, So, but that's about it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Speaking of like getting married and kids, I know you mentioned the school that you hope to open at some point is marriage and like having a family, all that stuff. Is that still on the long-term planning, or are you thinking you might be living a life of confirmed bachelorhood like Rich Roney?
I'm probably leaning towards the Rich Roney life.
As long as you have
not a bad life. Look, I'm not taking it off the table. I mean, it would be nice, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. If it does, it does. Great. It's I kind of, you got to go which way the wind blows at that point. It is what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's true. And again, speaking of Rich, as long as you have a more balanced diet than beer and bread sandwiches, I think you'll be all right.
No, I learned how to cook during COVID. I enjoy cooking. I genuinely enjoy cooking.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm still not the best, but I can, I know how to cook steak and chicken, and I'll make my breakfast eggs and some chorizo and some, get some English muffins and stuff like that. But yeah, key thing in a lot of this stuff is butter. Butter is so key. Who knew?
Yeah, listen though, that's awesome. In the I don't know if you had a chance to listen, but in Thanksgiving episode, I had Roby on, and we talked about.
I did.
What a chef!
I see what's a chef. He's become great. I mean, he's done well for himself.
Yeah. Oh, I'm very inspired with both of you guys. That's really something. Are you like?
Roby's more skilled than I am. I'm very low. I'm just getting my cutting skills down. Although I'm not gonna lie, since working at the supermarket, a lot of this stuff is at my fingertips. And I work with a lot of minorities, but I've learned like key making great guacamole, and it's not too shabby the few times that I've made it, and I'm like, I've impressed myself. The first time I was like, oh, way too much lime, and not enough avocado. Now I know. Now I'm finding my ratios. So it's getting good. It's just like, oh, this is good.
Yeah. So. Oh, I'm very happy to hear that. I mean, that's great. I mean, that's, that saves money. It's healthier. I mean, there's, so many benefits to, cooking for yourself, not getting everything out. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, man. I do enjoy it. The problem you have though is now, just working 9.5 hours and then going to the gym, and then you get home at 9 o'clock at night. It's like, do I really want to cook at 9 o'clock at night? No. But, you kind of bite down on the mouth guard and you go through it, and then you're like, thank God I did that, that type of thing.
Yeah. Going back to like working out, you do what you got to do. I just saw, the Rock, he posted on Instagram, it was midnight and he had to get in his second leg workout, at midnight, and he did it, so,
he'll be up at 4 o'clock in the morning for that guy's, that guy's a monster. He's such a positive inspiration for so many people. It's like, good for him,
Yeah, no, I love following all of his stuff. It is inspiring, and I'm looking forward to the sitcom about his life. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
I think it's already started.
Soon, very soon. By the time this comes out, I think it will have started. I think we're like a week or two out. Very soon, though.
Okay.
Yeah,
maybe.
Oh, speaking of things coming out, and this dovetails into something else that I wanted to ask you about, your fandom of the Joker, because again, by the time people hear this in a couple of weeks, maybe this will be old news. But just yesterday or today, we got some images of Joker in the Snyder cut of Justice League. Did you get to see them?
I have not.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'll be on hold on. Let's see, the power of the internet at your fingertips, right?
Yes. Well, if only there were a way we could pull up these photos right now.
So it's Snyder cut Joker images, huh?
Yeah.
Is that who was playing the Joker?
Jared Leto.
Oh, this is Jared Leto Joker.
Yeah, this is not
my favorite.
But this is a different look. It's a different look. They didn't go with the Suicide Squad look.
So Justice League. It's Justice League. What is it called? Justice League what?
If you just do Justice League Snyder cut Joker, it should come up.
Okay. Google at your best. Doesn't really show his full look, but he looks like a zombie. Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not fussed on him. He was. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just curious, but let me ask you because is it safe to say Joker's still your favorite comic book character?
I mean, I don't. He'll always be a favorite. I don't think I have anyone that is a favorite anymore that sticks out. But it'll probably lean towards the Joker. I mean, recent renditions. I have my opinions, obviously. Joaquin Phoenix, he was great. I hated that. It's a comic book movie, and you basically made it a mental thing. That's why he left the way he left. I thought that was like you wanted to show mental health in a comic movie. I was like that drove me mad. But other than that, showing that he was if you read Three Jokers, it's like okay, a lot of this makes sense. So sometimes I think the writers of the books try to have a lot of similarities that the movies came out with. You know what I mean? And sometimes I feel like they should have just followed the books because the books were written that way,
Yeah, well, I know that is the age-old, debate when we have these comic book adaptations. I'll be honest, and I don't know how much you and I even spoke about the Joker movie, but I wasn't really a fan. I wasn't offended by it, but I wasn't really a fan. The thing that bugged me about it was I thought it would have been really interesting if you really got to see this person's descent.
No, they just made him mentally ill.
I mean, that's the thing, right? That's the thing.
I was really pissed. Look, the last half hour of that movie was brilliant, and that's really like you should have started that way and went into a backstory. You know what I mean? It would have been one of those movies that worked better if you watched it backwards.
Yeah, I suppose. But for you, for Joker generally, what made you a fan to begin with?
I don't know. I probably Batman the Animated Series. Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Voicing that old. I just remember. It must have been 1992 or 93. I was watching the old Christmas episode of Batman the Animated Series, and Joker saying "Jingle Bells, Batman smells, Robin Lake." So I don't know. He just made me laugh, and I was like, he's making me laugh, and as scary as I got older and more educated, and just all the messed up things he would do, kind of that's part of my personality and my humor is like. I laugh at a lot of messed up things, and it's probably because of the Joker, the way he was written, So, and especially that time was about, when, no, that's too early, but I probably had read the reprint of The Killing Joke or something like that, Because I always had some sort of, interest in them. Because a lot of people when I was younger, they were afraid of clowns, and I would just find the Joker funny, and I would have like Joker comics around, and they just leave me alone so I could read my book because I didn't like clowns. So I'm not joking. That's really what happened. So
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, because I feel like you don't often someone's favorite comic book character. I feel like I don't know, a lot of people tend to gravitate more towards the heroes, but for a villain, I think that's interesting. What's your favorite Joker comic book story? Do you have one?
Honestly, in recent years, I love the Brian Azzarello story. You
Oh,
know,
that five part miniseries or
yeah,
whatever. Because they did a Lex Luthor one and a Joker one. So yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
The Azzarello one speaks to me of volumes because I don't know. He was the boogeyman, right? Put it in perspective this way. John Wick is they call him Baba Yaga, right? So the Joker is the boogeyman for all the bad guys. You know,
Yeah.
so I mean, look, I love Batman too. I watch more Batman shows than anything else. I always thought Batman was the best hero. But
Yeah. Oh,
as you speak,
what'd you think of Gotham, the TV show?
I liked Gotham.
Yeah,
I
me
thought it was
too.
great.
Me too.
I thought it was very, very good. Although, the Penguin stole that show, and Ed and guy who played Enigma, those guys, those actors, they stole that show.
Yeah, they were so good.
They were brilliant.
I mean, the show was always, received most of its praise for its depiction of the villains. Those two in particular were fantastic, and I loved what Cameron Monaghan did as
As
his
Jerome.
version of the Joker. Yeah,
He was great. He was very, very good. He was very, very good. But it was another show that short-lived, 5 seasons, right?
I mean, look, they can't all be 10-year epics like Smallville. 5
I
years, they
know.
did 100 episodes. That was a solid run.
Well, yeah, they get their reruns, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They go into syndication.
So, but all right, so that Azzarello miniseries, you kind of hold that up on the comic book side, and then
Yeah, I mean, Killing Joke, you always have to go back to, right? Even Dark Knight Returns, his role in the Dark Knight Returns,
right.
That sort of was like, oh, okay, kind of jars you a bit, that Frank Miller writing,
Did you? I don't know if you got a chance to listen to the All-Star Batman and Robin episode that I did of Book Club with Sean Hendricks, but we talked about the Joker's role in that, which you didn't really get to see fleshed out. You only got a little taste of it before the series just stopped.
Stopped, yeah. So yeah, but no, maybe I did. I think I might have. I'm sorry. My memory isn't as good as it used to be.
It's okay.
That comes with the age. I don't know. I kind of, for the Joker was really always the artists that really made me buy the stories. And, as I got older, I read the earlier stories and, how he was more of a criminal back in the 30s and 40s and stuff like that. And again, if you haven't read Three Jokers, you figure out, oh, this is what's going on with the Jokers. But, I was half right when we first spoke about it,
Yeah, because we texted when Three Jokers first came out. I was very curious, as a Joker fan, what you thought, and you compared it to a Christopher Nolan movie, The Prestige, which I love, and I don't want to spoil it in case anyone hasn't seen it. But when you mentioned that, I was like, oh, that's a cool way to look at it. I mean, all in all, and I guess we'll avoid spoilers because Three Jokers is still relatively recent, in case anyone hasn't read it yet. But like overall, were you satisfied with it? Because overall I liked it. I wasn't blown away.
No, I wasn't blown away. The first issue, I was like, okay, great, I can get into this. Second issue was like, okay, I see what you did there. And the third issue was like, really? I was like, okay, I guess, is that what I have to accept? Fine. And then he still didn't find out what you wanted to find out after all these years.
Yeah, it was, again, overall it's worth a read, but I don't think it was worth
a read, but
hype.
I do think, in my opinion, it was anticlimactic, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And then what about live action Jokers? Is Heath Ledger your favorite?
He is definitely up there. He did the best depiction for sure.
Well, who's your favorite?
I mean, Jack Nicholson.
Because no, look, here's the thing, right? I said who's your favorite,
I think
fine.
it has to do. I think it has to do with age, and I think Heath. So Jack and Heath are probably on the same level. I think because of my age and how young I was, because I remember seeing the original Batman, 1989 Batman, in the theaters. I remember seeing it. And I remember seeing the Joker and how he was, and, where does he get those wonderful toys? And the greatest thing ever. And, as a kid, was I 8 at the time? As an 8-year-old kid, it was like, wow, cool. I remember my eyes just being, bright eyed and just, you in shock. And it was one of the coolest things ever. So I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. I mean, but I love Cesar Romero. I mean, Jared Leto by far for me is the worst Joker. But, who knows?
Yeah, I'm curious to see his Joker come back in the Snyder cut, and we'll see. Yeah, I was really not a fan of Suicide Squad generally, or
Suicide Squad had so much potential too. So
yeah,
and it started off really great, and then it just went to crap. It's just the typical DC formula.
Well,
even Wonder Woman. Well, yes, I know you will defend your movies to no end. I understand. I know you're a very big fan, but if you're comparing Marvel movies to DC movies have been sort of underwhelming. And I'm a fan of the Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman movie that came out. The second one was just like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 84 was tough. I mean, I'll say this, I think this is very fair to say. The Marvel movies have been very consistent. There's a level of consistency that the DC movies have not achieved. They've been very much a mixed bag. I am a defender of Snyder. I'm very excited for the Snyder cut. And, not to take us down a tangent here, but with the Suicide Squad, I don't know if you've been following this, but there's a whole movement to release the director's original cut of the movie, because apparently he was forced to reshoot a lot of stuff and it got recut like kind of out from under him. So apparently there's another version of that movie. Again, I would be curious to see it. I don't know how much it would be curious improve,
to see. I still watch this. So, there's recasts and like you said, the level of consistency in the DC movies it's just not there. It's just it's poor to say the least. But if they do a Flashpoint, reset, and get the actors you want to play everybody and be like, okay, hey, you are Batman for the next 10 years. Hate to tell you, don't sign up for anything else. We'll get the right writers, that type of thing, sort of. But, Jon Favreau can't save everything. So, Jon Favreau made the Marvel Universe what it really is, right? Started off with Iron Man.
Yeah.
And he's been in all the way down. Now, look what he did for Star Wars. Star Wars, The Mandalorian, that's the best thing in the last 25 years that's come out from Star Wars, and he's at the helm. So Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, in fairness, he was really good with the Clone Wars and stuff like that. And them together, I mean, that's a match made in heaven for any Star Wars fan. And I'll debate people on that no matter what.
No, I get it. And, in the last episode I had Drew on, and he spoke at length about how, the Mandalorian has really, restored his fandom and his faith in the franchise. So I think that's cool. So we've been going for just about an hour, and my phone is nearing the end of its battery life. So I want to make sure we touch on this. You're here for our St. Patrick's Day episode of the LongAR Halloween. And, as I was mapping out who I wanted to have on for each of these holiday installments, there were some that, yeah, to be honest, there's some coming up that are somewhat arbitrary, others that made perfect sense, others where I kind of had to fit a little bit, like, having Drew for Valentine's Day, he officiated my wedding to Steph. There was that component. But from the start, it was like, well, O'Day has to be on the St. Patrick's Day episode. Because I know you're proud of your Irish heritage. You visit Ireland, and famously, and I wanted to ask about this, and I think maybe I got my answer because you touched on the fact that you're really not drinking much these days. But in the past, you used to give up alcohol for Lent, with the exception of St. Patrick's Day, where you received, if I'm not mistaken, right, special dispensation from the Pope. Was that right?
That's right. Yeah. That is correct. That is absolutely correct. So, but yes, that is true. It's a true story. I would go dry except for St. Patty's Day for 40 days, and that was what I would give up for Lent. But now that I don't even do that anymore, I don't know what I have to do anymore. But yeah, it is, I used to take it very seriously. I don't even want to say I took it. It's not really a serious holiday. And St. Patrick isn't even Irish, which is hilarious. Go figure that one out. Bit of history there, right?
Yeah.
He's Italian for all those that didn't know. but yeah, I would famously take St. Patty's Day off from work. I'd go into the city and have a few beers and run amok, get home, call it a night.
Yeah. So, will you be giving up something for Lent this year if it's not alcohol?
I don't know. I haven't decided yet, to be honest with you.
Because that's what
it's kind of weird because there's no real vices to, I'm not really doing anything that I would always be doing anymore. It's hard to say. It's like, oh, I'll give up candy or chocolate. Okay, fine. There's no point. There's got to be something to do. Maybe I'll do something extra. Maybe I'll help people out. Something, maybe I can do something like that.
I like that. It's
pay it forward a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like on the New Year's episode, I had Phil on, Phil Hussein, and we talked about how he fasts for Ramadan, and I respect that. I mean, despite being raised Catholic, it's like even when I was a practicing Catholic, the whole like no meat on Fridays and stuff, like I never subscribed to that. It just wasn't for me. But I do respect whether it's that or giving up something for Lent like you've done. I mean, I admire if you have the discipline to do that and you want to do it and you derive some value from it. For me, it's like I don't know. It was just never really my bag. But I like what you said. I think that might be a better way to look at it. Not depriving yourself, but trying to do something proactive, something positive, something good that you can put out there, as opposed to I'm not going to eat chocolate for a month.
Yeah. What does that do for me? I don't have a sweet tooth for a month. Yeah, you're right. Be proactive is probably a better thing. And you probably make yourself feel better as well. That you did something for somebody maybe, or for some, maybe it's you helped a kid out or something. I don't know. Anything,
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So I mean, again, you don't have your traditional St. Patrick's Day routine with the alcohol and all that, and of course,
well, you don't listen. Yeah. You can't even have bars open, right? So last year the bars and everything was closed for St. Patty's Day.
So that's what I was going to say. What are your plans for this year? I know we're still early in terms of when we're recording this, but do you know what you will do?
Yeah, I'll be working, and I'm probably going to dress up like a leprechaun at work. So just maybe I'll give some people some humor. They take photos of me, So, but that's my plan.
All right. Well, I think that'll be fun. Oh, wait. And so with the training, so now is the school open at all? Or are you doing it at home? What are you doing?
Since this is public access, I don't want to say what we're doing.
Okay, fair enough.
We're training underground.
Okay.
Put it that way.
But well, anything else that you want to mention before we wrap up?
I don't know, man. I again, I do appreciate you actually giving me the one-on-one time this time. I had fun. I know it's an hour. Sorry to take us up so long. I think I had 2 hours out of Drew. We're not on a Joe Rogan podcast. I got that. That's all right. No 3-hour podcast.
No 3. Well, no, it's funny though. So I think we had said this in one of our unused takes, but when I first asked you to be on this, you were like, oh, who else is going to be on there? I'm like, no, these are one-on-one. And, it's kind of shifted in terms of, what I kind of want out of the podcast experience and what I want to put out there. So, in the past when I've done, podcasts with 2 or 3 guests where I'm really trying to learn from them and get information out of them, that's one thing. But with something like this where we're just conversing and catching up, it's like, I'm happy to have it just be one-on-one. And I think we get a more, organic conversation than, multiple people all trying to, jump in. So I love doing it this way.
Wow. Who would have known Joe Rogan was right, huh? I don't know. Somebody might have said something a few years ago, but who knew? Who knew?
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, it's like I'm happy that I did the other episodes the way that I did, but I'm also happy to do these this way now. But it's funny as far as the runtime, for the LongAR Halloween episodes, those have been in the hour to hour and a half range. Those haven't been anything crazy, but the digging for kryptonite and the book club episodes that I've been doing, those have all been most of them have been pushing 2 hours. We have a lot to say.
Good. Oh, that's what I meant to ask you. That's right. All your listeners are going to know how silly and stupid I am. So when I saw the LongAR Halloween, I was like, oh, maybe he wants me to read the Long Halloween again. So I ended up reading the Long Halloween again. So I ended up reading The Long Halloween again. And I'm like, oh, this is such a great story. Maybe he'll bring up this. So I was like, you know what? I had to say, I'll say this. I was like, now I want to be on the book club and we can discuss The Long Halloween. So that's what I got.
Well, that is hilarious. If it makes you feel any better, you're not the only one. I don't know if it was Bill or Phil. Like someone, when I reached out to them about this, they were like, oh, like, do you want, I don't know if they said, do you want me to read that? Or they might've said like, what do you want me to read? And I was like, no. Like, it's not a book club. It's just, it's the LongAR Halloween. It's just, it's a fun takeoff on the title.
So yes. So I ended up actually reading it. So yeah. not that it matters, not that, but I also read the follow-up, Dark Victory after that as well.
Well, so I'm sorry that you did that unnecessarily, but they are great stories. So
they're fantastic stories. Batman stories.
I'd feel worse if they were terrible stories. They were like, oh, and I had to go track them down, and I didn't like them.
I didn't mean to ask you. Did you read Doomsday Clock?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay, and you enjoyed that, and you that's like the DC reset again, right?
Essentially,
I bought the trade, and I'm going to read it at some point. But I just kind of know I have no real background on it, or I don't know what my expectations should be.
It's real funny because I'm not a huge Watchmen guy, and I've said this on other podcasts. Like I admire it and I respect it, and the one time I read it, I did enjoy it, but it's not something that I've been like, oh man, I'm dying to go back to it. So I'm not a huge Watchmen guy, but. And so the whole idea, like at the end of the DC Rebirth special, right, years ago now, when we found out that the Watchmen world was going to collide with the DC universe, I was like, all right, well, like it didn't really do anything for me. And I went into Doomsday Clock with pretty low expectations, and I quite enjoyed it. And I don't know if you watched the HBO Watchmen series, but it was so good.
It was very good.
So it's interesting, like having these recent Watchmen related projects that I've really been into. So I dug Doomsday Clock a lot.
Well, okay, good. Well, I mean, I'll take it on your recommendation. I did buy it, just hey, something for me to read, and just having trying to read some of the news stories because as I got out of the comics, I thought a lot of the stories were soft and they just weren't any good. No offense to the writers out there; they're just doing their job, but I didn't enjoy them. Put it that way.
No, I understand.
It's not I'm not trying to belittle anybody, but for something like The Watchmen, when I first read, I was a kid when I first read that, so it wasn't an easy read for me as a kid, so I didn't really understand a lot of the stuff that was going on. So as I got older, obviously I reread it, and it's a very good read, but it's a hard read. You know what I mean? It's not an easy read. So
yeah, it's not something that you like. It's not something you bring to the beach and you kind of just like relax and read it.
Yeah, it's yes, exactly. And it's not something I would tell people is like, oh, it's something you can read over and over again. It's something you have to actually want to read over again and be like, oh, this happened. I can go see that. So that's why obviously the TV show was a lot better than the movie, obviously. But anyway, so it's good to know that you're recommending Doomsday Clock. So, all right, no problem.
I like it, and without spoiling anything, it kind of gets at the heart of the Superman's role in the DC universe and mythology. So I liked it for that aspect. But anyway, I do hope that you enjoy it. When you get a chance to check it out.
Absolutely. Maybe I'll have a discussion one of these days.
Yes, well, there are plenty of podcasts, so I think we'll be able to. We'll have you on. It's funny because like eventually I will cover the LongAR Halloween and all that stuff, but I've done a good bit of Loeb between Digging for Kryptonite and my Comic Shop Book Club. I've done a few Loeb things already, so I'm going to space out the LongAR Halloween, the Long Halloween, and all that stuff.
Is there? Are you doing like writers? Are you doing like writers runs with the book club, or are you just doing specific like big story arcs? Or
it's a mix. It really depends. I mean, given my inclinations, like it's definitely more writer centric. But it's a mix of stuff, and just
you get some of the Miller stuff in there, and you get some.
Yes. No, of course.
Alan Moore stuff and whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, dude, before my phone dies, thank you very much for taking part. I'm really glad.
Pleasure.
I'm glad we got to catch up. I'm glad you're hanging in there. You're doing your thing. Stay safe, stay healthy. And I look forward to the next time when we can actually be in person together.
Fantastic. Don't be a flat squirrel.
Don't be a flat squirrel. Take care, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you to Brian and to all of you for tuning in for this episode. We'll be back at the beginning of April with Tom Darby for our April Fool's episode. Should be a lot of fun. Until then, don't be a flat squirrel. My Comic Shop History is a Flat Squirrel production. Art by Philtastic Phil Menza, music by Basic Printer. If you like what you heard, be sure to listen to Digging for Kryptonite, available on most major podcast platforms. Sign up for exclusive content at patreon.com/Anthony Desiato and watch My Comic Shop Country, out now on Apple TV and Amazon.